figured out that Olivia was Eve.
You should have told us immediately.
So that one was full of the challenges. I mean, any time you get a large cast, it's tough to shoot because every cast member is now, you know, in a scene, it's another setup.
Furies!
Yeah.
A lot of Xena episodes, you'll just have Lucy and Renee. So it's, you know, essentially a two-shot or a couple singles, and you do the page-and-a-half, two-page scene, and you move on. When all of a sudden you have 8 people in a scene, and it's a two-page scene, well, now everybody needs their own shot. So, and you get that throughout the entire show, you know, a 7-day shoot becomes really hard to make because of the amount of coverage that you got to get for everybody.
All you had to do was distract her. How was she able to stop Gabrielle? Now we have no choice. We launch a full-scale attack.
That was fantastic, actually, because I had to use a real bow and arrow. So for a few days, I actually had training with a proper archer. He was actually like some New Zealand Olympic champion or something. And yeah, and they gave me, I actually had to, instead of like a fake bow and arrow, I actually had the real deal. So it was actually really quite heavy, and you've sort of got to support with your actual hand the bow. But he taught me the whole proper action of actually pulling back like this, and you come back to the ear like that, and then you release. And when it came to shooting it, well, it's always a different story because you've got the lights, you've got all the hustle bustle, you've got the pressure of, you know, the whole scene happening.
And be reborn. We did it! To the way of love.
That episode was incredible to film. Anything you can think of, we had. Rain machines and wind machines. We were in the desert. We had explosions. We had fire. I mean, spiders. We had everything you could think of. It was truly like filming a movie.
Do it, Mother.
Xena Shockerman Gabrielle, that was one of those moments in the script that when I read, I went, you know, wow, this is great. Because, you know, this is something we haven't seen before. And I love it anytime we can, you know, something new, something that the character's totally out of character. And this was it. So I remember thinking, wow, this is going to be great. And I had this neat shot kind of planned for it. And when I was blocking it, you know, I had Xena outside with Ares, and Renee was inside with Eve, and the way it was blocked is Xena's supposed to turn and see Gabrielle stabbing her through the window. Well, the way I had it blocked, you couldn't see where they were through this window. So, in pre-production, I had said, you know, is it okay? You know, she gets the sense, she runs in, she sees the thing, she says, oh yeah, no problem, great. Okay, perfect, that's how I'm gonna do it.
Visually, I think it looked great. I think it looked incredible. But it was difficult to film because she's right behind me, has to be close enough that it looks real, but of course I can't see what she's doing, so I have to be screaming at the appropriate time. So the funny thing is they arranged the lighting so that I could see her shadow, so that I could see her coming down with, you know, with the knife. And so I would just kind of like time it to my peripheral vision, trying to figure out when it is that I'm, you know, supposed to scream and make it look realistic.
I love the way it came out. I loved doing the shot in one. You know, usually you do a shot, you know, Xena throws the chakram, cut to the chakram spinning, close up of Renee hitting the head. But I wanted it to be one shot. So it was like really kind of had like a holy shit factor. And it worked out great. So we just, you know, we put the two of them in the same shot and had a CG chakram go through the shot. And then I just wanted this stunned look from Renee as she kind of stood there. And then we had this little tube of blood, this little tube, so that as she kind of stood there, the reveal of what truly happened to her was all of a sudden this single line of blood kind of came down her face. And then she fell out of frame. And it worked out great. It was perfect. Moving on, shoot it, you know, we shot it dailies. Everyone saw dailies, great. So all of a sudden, I'm back in the States and we're cutting it. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing all this rumor of, you know, what have you done? And I remember just going, huh? And I guess it ruffled a lot of feathers. And I don't know if it's just, you know, maybe everybody had a different take on it or the way it was supposed to be. But, you know, I read, and it's in the script, you know, Xena sees Gabrielle stabbing Eve, and she throws her chakram, splitting Gabrielle's head. Perfect. Well, I don't know what part of that other people interpreted a different way, but all of a sudden, hey, can't do that. Xena would never do that. And I always thought, well, of course Xena wouldn't do it. I mean, I always interpreted it was the work of the Furies. The Furies are, you know, they're in Gabrielle's head, making her do her thing. They're possibly having some kind of influence on Xena. Xena's not thinking clearly. She's seeing her daughter being killed. You know, it's that whole, you know, caught up in the moment. I mean, it's one of those things that you do, and as soon as you do, you regret. I do remember having a tough decision on the set, and that was, okay, when you throw the chakram, Gabrielle falls, who do you go to first?
You know, it's a mother's instinct, I think, and you can't fault her for that, that if you see that your daughter is about to die, it's not a choice of killing one person or another. It's that mother's instinct of just saving something that she had only recently found. I mean, she had lost me for 25 years, and, you know, at this point, I think it was just a desperate, instantaneous thing that she tried.
You hang in there, you're gonna be fine.
Finally, people just said, well, let's just go with it, because nothing was ever reshot, but it's still in the show, so they eventually got over it. The big battle in Joxer's Tavern, that was the big challenge, because we had this pretty small set, and we had, I think it was like 5 gods in there. And one of the biggest problems I had in that whole fight scene, and I continuously had to work with the stunt coordinators on, was, you know, we got 5 gods here, and the way it was scripted, each one was kind of, Xena dealt with each one kind of individually. I added in stuff like, you know, Xena throws her chakram, and it dancing around doing that whole thing, you know, and that'll kind of keep one god busy while another god's doing this. And so I think we kind of succeeded pretty well at, you know, you didn't sit there and watch a scene and go, well, why doesn't he just do this? I think everybody kind of is being kept busy.
Come on, you gotta get out.
In the sort of the showdown in the big barn where everything's on fire, and myself and Joel Tobeck and Kevin Smith are there fighting Xena, there's so much happening, and I had to be able to get the arrows out of the quiver, and it's actually so much harder than it looks to be able to pull an arrow out really quickly from there, and then line it up, get it lined up onto this huge bow, and it took me all my strength to actually be able to pull it back and hold it back and then release, but it was a fantastic feeling, releasing it and watching the arrow flying over.
I think it was also Xena's last time that she breathed fire. I remember reading, you know, Xena breathes fire. It's like, oh, okay, CG effect, and all of a sudden, you know, this is, you know, Sven. He's the guy that taught Lucy how to breathe fire, and I'm like, going, she's gonna do it? And she's like, oh yeah, she's done it before, and she did it. But I thought that was kind of cool because that was, and again, that wasn't a scripted event. That's the whole fight scene was pretty loosely scripted at best. And because they did that from time to time, they just kind of would say, you know, here's what we need to happen, but as for the way it's blocked and stuff, you guys just do it. The big final fight scene between Athena and Xena was, the biggest thing I remember about that was Xena, or Lucy, we had like about 35 minutes left in the day to shoot her entire side of the fight.
She totally blew me away. She was just so, especially in the physical sense, you know, how in control she was. She really mastered that whole physical side to it. And, you know, they only had to do a few takes with her and she nailed it every time. And it was just awe-inspiring watching her.
And Lucy did. It was this huge fight scene, but she just absorbed it all, just sucked it all in. We did like one take of her. I think there's like 3 or 4 different blocks on it. We did one pass on her and wrap, and we've wrapped on time. But yeah, she was all just, that was all like one take. And then of course, Paul Grinder and second unit kind of got in there and got me some nice tight inserts and stuff like that, and a lot of wonderful little cable rigs, and made it a pretty decent fight scene.
Ooh, what do we got here?
I have endless stories about this spider. This spider could get more press than you can imagine. It was hilarious. I knew that it was going to be an issue when, first of all, the production office calls and asks me if I'm allergic to any spiders, if I'm scared of spiders, and I'm not. I don't like them, but I don't have any particular phobias or anything. Lucy tells me when she finds out that I have to deal with this spider, she says, "You watch." She said, "When you bring out that spider, half of the crew will just scatter." And I thought, seriously? And she goes, "Oh yeah." She said, "I've had to deal with spiders on the show." She said, "You can't believe how many people have phobias." And it's absolutely true. People throughout the day are kind of asking about it. When's the spider coming out? What's the deal with that? And finally, it's the end of the day, and it's time for us to shoot those scenes, and they bring the spider out. Like 6 people just in the immediate camera crew can't be anywhere near it. They can't look at it. It's just too much. And the poor girl who was the focus puller, she, you know, has to get the tape measure as close as she possibly can. She can't do it. She tries, she just can't do it. It's just too much. I mean, you conquer fears that you never thought you would, or you didn't even know you had until that moment. And you don't have time to say no or make a big deal. You just walk into the situation, do the best that you can.